Hello, this is Zotovai TV and I'm your host Elizabeth Amodu. And this is where we bring in interesting topic, engaging topic that has to do with you and me. And today we'll be looking at something interesting, something engaging, something educative. We're looking at the topic paternity fraud. What is paternity fraud? This is when a woman misidentifies a man to be the biological father of her child when he's not, and this could be intentional or not intentional. I won't be doing this alone. I have guests with me today and we'll be doing this together. To my left, I have Mr. Eden. It's nice to have you here. And to my right hand, I have two beautiful women. Next to me is Miss Mercy Matthew. Nice to have you here, ma.
Thank you.
And next to her is a gorgeous lady, Miss Valentina Gilbert. Welcome, ma.
Thank you.
All right, so we'll go on a short break now, and when we return, we'll hear from our guests on what they have to say. We'll be right back. This is Zotobai TV, just in case you're joining us for the first time, and we are discussing the topic paternity fraud. Welcome back from that short break. It's still Zotobai TV, and we are looking at the topic paternity fraud. So I'd like to start with you, Mr. Eden. At what point should a man start suspecting the paternity of his child?
Okay, I think this is a very important question, right? But the best advice that I can give is that it's necessary to start suspecting when the child is growing up. Like you look out for physical and behavioral traits. Those are very important, especially when you can't go to the traditional paternity tests and blood tests and everything. You can't go to those ones. It's best to look out for the physical and behavioral, especially when the child is growing up. It can really help a lot.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Eden. So this trait now, is it as the child is growing up as a baby or as he has grown up as a man?
Okay, so I would say that it should be as the child is growing up, specifically around the toddler age, that's 6 to 8 to 10. Those are the ages where the child would actually develop, and you'll be able to notice those physical traits. It's very important that you don't pick those traits immediately. The child is born and then you just say, oh, let me check if my child. You will not be able to notice because that child has just been born. Bones are just getting together. So watch out from the toddler age. It's a very important thing. You can't wait till the 20 something.
Yeah.
That's already too late.
Yes.
So I think it's best at the toddler ages. Those are
Right. Thank you very much, Mr. Eden. Miss Mercy, do you think that there are cases of paternity fraud in our today's world?
Yeah, I would like to say a yes to that. There are cases of paternity fraud in our society today. Today, you see fathers trooping into the hospital, carrying out DNA tests, carrying out paternity tests, whereas their wives don't know about this. So there are cases, but our society, due to the fact that they don't take paternity fraud as a criminal offense, so it's making it seem as if there are no cases of paternity fraud in our society, but there are cases of paternity fraud in our society.
Okay. Thank you very much, Miss Mercy. Thank you very much, Miss Valentina. So how will you manage your emotions as a woman and that of the family at that point where the man starts suspecting the paternity of your child?
Although it's very painful, but as a woman, you have to take it calmly. Though I know it's very painful for your husband to start suspecting you that you're cheating on him or you have a child that is not for him. But you have to take things very calmly. You give him words of encouragement. You tell him there is no case of infidelity in this marriage and you don't have to believe outsiders instead of me. So in cases like that, if he doesn't still believe you or he's not convinced yet that what you're saying is true, then you can just say, okay, let's go for DNA test. So once you are done with the DNA and the child comes out that the child is his, you don't need to be angry at him or anything because he didn't do it from his own free will. He didn't do it from his will. Like I said earlier, it must be from the influence that was more prompting to go for the test. So once you are done with the test, you'll be like, okay, since you know this child is your own now, you don't need to believe outsiders. When you hear something, you come to me, your wife and your children, that are your immediate family. You don't need to jeopardize their own happiness for outsiders. So you just say, okay, please, if you hear anything like that, just come and tell me so that we will figure it out as a family. Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Miss Valentina. Mr. Eden, do you have anything to add to that?
Well, I think is a very sensitive topic. We've seen so many cases where the husband gets very, you know, should I say, violent.
Okay.
When he finds out, oh, this child might not be my own, and it can cause a lot of destruction, in the family bond and everything. Is a very sensitive topic, and a lot of times it's caused by personal insecurity, social media, things like that, peers, past relationships,
Yes.
and many of these kind of things can lead to um, questioning the paternity of your children. And so I think is very necessary, to from either side, either the woman or the man, just um, don't let your emotions to get the best of you in that kind of situation. Just make sure that is each step that you're taking is not going to leave like a damaging mark, because what if you are wrong about it?
Yeah.
What if you are wrong about it? You may just have damaged the trust in your family.
Yes.
And it's very necessary as the woman, to make sure that you are able to actually take that test, because if you are able to take the test, then you're able to prove that. As a matter of fact, even before you take the test, the fact that you have said you are going to take the test is already enough. There are a lot of women that you say, let's take the test, and they're like, no, let's not take that. Already, that is, should I call it a red flag?
Yeah.
And so it's a very sensitive topic.
Thank you very much, Mr. Aiden. Miss Mercy, in a world where there's no DNA, what other means can a man check the paternity of his child?
All right. I would say in a world where there is no DNA, you can use physical traits and also the behavioral traits to know the paternity of a child.
Okay.
I think the physical appearance of a child matters most, where the child is either looking like the father or the mother. Although sometimes some children do look like distant relations, not like the father or the mother. Sometimes you hear them say, this child look like our grandfather like that time. So, and at times, I think the behavioral traits also matters, because they say charity begins at home. When a child is not behaving like the father, is not behaving like the mother. I know that yes, society also influences a child, but before the society will influence a child, I think that child should have learned from the house, from home. So I think in a situation when the child is not behaving like both parents, it doesn't have the traits. At least if you don't have the traits of that your parents physically, you should have their behavioral traits. So when the two are not there, I think they should question the paternity of such child.
Okay, thank you very much, Miss Mercy. You've heard from our guests what they have to say. You heard their cases of paternity fraud, and they have also told us on how to manage our emotions, and they've also told us on where to suspect it from the growing stage of a child. We'll go on a short break now. When we come back, the program continues. This is Zotobai TV, just in case you're joining us for the first time, and we are discussing the topic paternity fraud. All right, welcome back from that short break. We are still on the topic paternity fraud. So I would like to ask you, Mr. Eden, should there be a punishment for paternity fraud?
Okay, so from what I've seen, it's a very sensitive topic. You know, should there be a punishment? In different parts of the world, going outside Nigeria, in different parts of the world, there are some places where it's actually paternity fraud is still fraud. That's how they see it. It's still fraud. So it should have the same levity, it should have the same weight as fraud, normal online fraud that you see, cyber fraud and things like that. You should have the same weight. That's what some parts of the world think. And there are other parts of the world that believe that there should just be maybe financial sanctions and lenient punishments, because it's to them it's not that big of a deal. But personally, I think that I go with the latter. I think that paternity fraud is fraud. It's still fraud. And apart from the fact that it is a break in not just a marriage between two people, it's a break in basically a contract. You signed a contract with a woman to live the rest of her life, have children, and and you have basically breached that contract. I'm just thinking of it from a legal standpoint. I think there should be sanctions. It shouldn't be treated as if it is serial murder or terrorism. No, but there should be sanctions. So it doesn't cost someone their entire life. I can only imagine what it's like, raising a child. It's 25, 26, probably going about to leave the house, and he comes back home one day and says, I am not your son. I'm not your daughter. Check who your wife was going around with. I can only imagine the mental breakdown and everything. So it can be terrible at times. So I think there should be legal sanctions. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Eden. Miss Mercy, let's give you an instant to answer the next question. Okay, there is this story I read about paternity fraud where the man went to prison for 6 years for not being able to pay child support, only for him to come back after 6 years and he discovered that the child is not his. In this kind of situation, which punishment befits the woman?
For a start, paternity fraud, that word fraud is a criminal offense.
Okay.
So for a father that has gone to prison because he did not pay child support, and now they are getting to know that that child is not his. I think why this thing is even in our society is because our society is taking it lenient. The women now might just look at it that, okay, I think the worst that can happen is for us to go our separate ways. There are no punishment to these things in our society today. That is why I think most women do go about committing paternity fraud. This is a criminal offense. I think the government should even sign it into law. If it's the one that the woman should go for 5 years imprisonment, I think others will learn from it. Okay. Because our society is taking it very lenient. The worst that can happen is just for that marriage to scatter. You see the woman go her way, the man go his way. And I think on the long run, the child will be the one to suffer for it. A child that is very innocent. So I think that woman should face the punishment for it. Okay. And it should be jail term. Okay. Yeah.
All right, thank you, Miss Mercy. Miss Valentina, what punishment do you think befits such situation?
Yeah, like others said, paternity fraud is a very bad something. But we are just looking at only one angle in this place. From your definition, you said it might be intentional or not intentional. So for the intentional part, yeah, the person needs like jail term, like she said. But for unintentional, it might be that maybe she went to the hospital, she delivered a baby, and some nurses they do switch babies, if you know. So let's say in cases like that, that they switch the babies, and when the father of the child went for the DNA and finds out that the child is not his, okay, and the fault is not from the wife either, it's from the hospital, and let's say they find out that the fault is from the hospital, for that kind of case, you would not say you want to punish the woman because she was not aware too, like she didn't know what was going on. So that's why, although I know giving birth is a very big something, but you have to still be at alert so that cases like this might not happen, so that it will not bring emotional damage to both the father, the mother, and yourself also. So but for if it's intentional, yeah, the person needs punishment so that things like that will stop, because the thing is very very bad. Like it brings emotional damage to the people. Like some people cannot get over it till they die. So it's very bad.
All right, thank you very much, Miss Valentina. Mr. Eden, how will you balance your emotion as a broken father who just found out that this child is not yours, and you have already built a relationship with this child over the years? And also, how do you balance the emotion of that child that just found out that you that has been a loving father is not his father?
Okay, I think this is a very is an on ice question, because it's a very sensitive thing. We've seen cases where, and they are real. These cases are real. They happen across the world. So how would I say, if I was in the shoes of that kind of person, I would say that first of all, I got to experience fatherhood. Whether it's my child or not. As painful as that sounds, I got to experience fatherhood. I got to take care of a child. I got to make sacrifices for that child, believing that he was my child, believing he was not my child. I got to, so that should be the bare minimum. That's where every father's mindset should start from. Okay. That's the first thing. Then, secondly, I will need to, slow down on emotions, because I've seen people become erratic, and take violent action, and then they are going to jail for like murder or assault or something like that. Meanwhile they were the victim. And so I think the next thing would be to calm down on emotions, because anything else that can happen can be very, very dangerous. So the next thing should be to slow down, calm down. If you have to change your location, I recommend that. If you have to go away from that place for a while, I recommend that. And with the child, there are a lot of children that leaves a very huge scar. For some it's unhealable. For some it's a very traumatizing thing, and I would say that should not sever your connection with that child. That should not sever your connection with that child. The child at that point probably doesn't know his father, and to him you are that father.
Yeah.
You should not punish that child for the same way you should not be punished for a mistake that your wife made. You should not punish that child for a mistake that your wife made as well. So I think it's necessary to say, okay, this was someone I took care of from childhood to adulthood. Yes, he's not my child. Yes, he's not the person that I gave birth to or I brought to this world. And yes, it seems like, oh, I wasted my money on him, or the pointless thoughts that may come to your head. But the first thing is to understand that you experienced fatherhood, and it's necessary to still try to build a connection with that person, whether you like it or not. He's your son or she's your daughter. So that's it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Aiden. Miss Mercy, so how do you think a man can balance these two emotions?
Yeah, I think at first, a man discovering that the child that he has raised all this while is not his, I think at that point, his emotions will be damaged, and that of that child. At that point in time, I don't think they are supposed to even be living in the same space. That man will want to, I think, have a separate space with that of the child, because seeing that child, you'll be angry. Imagine waking up in the morning and you're seeing that child in your house, you'll be angry. So I think there is need for that child to go away for some time, probably stay with a relative or so for some time. The man is not that stupid to let that child just go like that. And to the child also, that child too, his emotions have been damaged. Imagine somebody you have been with all this while. This person is my father. I'm experiencing fatherhood with this person, and you just wake up one morning, they're telling you this person is not your father. Our society today, somebody might be like, that boy, that man that he has been living with is not his father. He will be traumatized. So I think in as much as the man is angry, he should also look at that child too, because it's not his fault. Definitely, he should not suffer for the sin that the mother has caused. So I think even if the child should go away for some time for the man to balance his own emotion, then I think after some while, because definitely maybe the such child might have other siblings that they are your own children, which they have already bonded emotionally. So I think there is still need for you to bring that child back, even if they later discover the father of the child. If the child decided to go back and reconcile with the father, or the father decided to reconcile with the child, at least by then you know that you've already played your own part as a father.
Thank you very much, Miss Mercy. Miss Valentina, please, what's your last word on paternity fraud?
In as much as paternity fraud is very, very bad, like it's very sinful something, but the society should also be cautious of their environment, in the sense that, from what I said about those that do switch babies in the hospital, if the woman is very, very cautious and she's at alert, such cases can't happen. And also for the men, that they shouldn't let influence of outsiders, social media, family members, they shouldn't allow it to enter their home, because it might bring some women, they might take the DNA test, and after it comes out true, they'll be like, okay, I can't continue this marriage because you don't trust me. Yeah, there are cases like that, and some that will still accept the husband back. So in such cases that the woman leaves, you've already made the child or the children in question, they are now separate from their both parents. One parent is outside, one is outside, and that's not what a child needs when growing up, because it will surely affect the child. So I'm saying, although paternity fraud is a sin, like is a fraud, but people should be very, very cautious, and they should know what to do. They should not let their immediate emotions help them to like go their this thing, to like help them arrange for what's in the future. So it's better you just take it easy with your family, then you go talk things out. That's it.
Right. Thank you very much, Miss Valentina. Mr. Eden, please, I'd like to know your last word on paternity fraud.
Okay, so if I have anything else to add, I'd say that it's while it's necessary to, you know, be what's preventive, it's very necessary to make sure that, oh, this child is yours, you're taking care of this child from early ages. You should know that, the first and best thing to prevent this in the whole situation is to make sure that you marry someone that is not, into infidelity and all those kind of activities. Make sure that that's because that's the ultimate solution. That's the ultimate solution. And for situations where you can't tell and you get into that kind of thing, yes, paternity tests, this is why they exist. And I think people should be aware of them, because we don't know how many people have taken care of children that they are not on their own. It's only when the child now goes to check, maybe for one interview or whatnot, and then he finds out that this father is not my father. I've heard so many situations like that. And so the best thing to do is to first of all make sure you are having a very good connected marriage. Second of all, you should have these tests. You should have these tests. Nobody in the family should feel insecure. And yes, you should trust your wife. As a matter of fact, these are tests you should take with your wife just once in a while, not really as let me police her, but as a family. Let's have these type of records. Let's understand what's going on. I think it's very necessary. So
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Eden. Miss Mercy, please, I'd like to know your last word on paternity fraud.
Okay, I would like to say trust matters, because all this paternity fraud, DNA, the place all these things are coming from a lack of trust. The main thing in every marriage now is just trust. Once you have trust in your partners, I don't think there will be need for paternity fraud, DNA test, going for paternity test. There won't be need for all these things. I think the only thing I would like to say is that trust should matter in all marriages, and also everybody out there should desist from paternity fraud. It is a criminal offense and should be punished as such. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Miss Mercy. All right, we've come to the end of the show. I'll first of all like to appreciate my guest speaker. Thank you very much for coming in to discuss with us. It was a nice time here having you, Mr. Eden. Thank you very much for coming. Miss Mercy, thank you very much for coming. Miss Valentina, thank you very much. Miss Valentina, as a woman, when your husband starts suspecting the paternity of your child, will you tag it as trust issues or insecurities?
Okay, for me, I would tag it as insecurity and trust issues, because I don't understand why my husband will wake up all of a sudden and ask me to do a DNA on our child or our children. I might not entirely blame him for what he asked for. It might be from influence of family members, his friends. Maybe when they are hanging out, they'll be like, have you seen this boy? This boy does not look like you at all. So from cases like that, he might just want to do the DNA test and ask you. And why I'll be angry is because there's no case of infidelity since we've been married. There's nothing like that. So it's very, very improper for you to come and ask me for DNA. But if he still insists, you have to take things calmly. You say, okay, you give him words of encouragement. And if he feels that the words are not okay, you then suggest for the DNA yourself. And once the DNA is done and you find out that, okay, this child is his, you don't need to be angry with him for that. It might not be entirely his fault. Thank you.
All right, we've come to the end of the program. As you've heard from our guests, all they have to say, paternity fraud is a case that has no positive impact on the society. It has to do with damages. If you look at the father aspect, it's damages. To the child aspect, it's damages. So why do you have to engage in such? So you, have the woman, have the responsibility of being loyal and trustworthy to your husband. And also as the man, you should also know how to manage your emotions when it comes to the cases of paternity fraud. Our guest has said a lot on this topic. So I still remain your humble host, Elizabeth Amodu, and this is Zotobai TV. Till next time, bye for now.